Hi guys, this is Jay. Welcome to Forbidden Files. Today is March 12, 2021, the 10th anniversary of Fukushima nuclear disaster. And the 40-year-old secret behind the accident is about to be revealed in this show. The secret is closely related to us all. It's the case 1997 TEPCO Black Notebook murder. Why does it concern our life? It's been 10 years since the nuclear disaster, but there haven't been any proper solutions. Just like a time bomb, nuclear wastewater keeps coming out from the plant. Its nuclear wastewater storage will have reached the limit by September 2022. The Japanese government and Tokyo Electric Power Company TEPCO claim they plan to release nuclear wastewater into the ocean later, which must have great impact on global ecosystem. On September 19, 2019, Tokyo District Court delivered its verdict on the liability case of Fukushima nuclear accident. Tsuneiza Katsumata, the former chairman of TEPCO, and other two executives were found not guilty. This verdict provoked a public outcry. The prosecution argued TEPCO, with Tsuneiza Katsumata and two others in charge, failed to take proper measures against the tsunami. But the defense claimed it was hard to predict the severity of disaster the nuclear plant faced. Even if active measures had been taken, the accident would have happened unavoidably. But is that really so? 40 years ago, two insiders of the company accurately predicted the disaster. Weirdly enough, these two died mysteriously. Fishier is that these two were father and daughter. Yasuko Watanabe and her father Tatsuo Watanabe. Yasuko Watanabe was also the victim of TEPCO Black Notebook murder. Her murder is well known nationwide. Now let's have a quick review of the case. On the night of March 19, 1997, a sex worker was found dead in an apartment in Yoyamachi, Shibuya, southwestern Tokyo. A black handbag, slit open by a sharp object, was next to her body. There was a black notebook keeping sex trade details and a business card holder in it. The police got astonished when opening the card holder. The real identity of her was Yasuko Watanabe, the Deputy General Manager of the Economic Research Office, Planning Department in TEPCO. After opening the notebook, what the police could only do was shut it again in silence. Because a name, one the police were even scared of, appeared on the list of sex trade customers. Akira Ohira, the son of former Prime Minister Masayoshi Ohira. As we know, Yasuko would always take down the names of people who paid her for sex on the black notebook. Some of the names were real while others were nicknames. Why was Akira Ohira on that list? To figure it out, let's talk about Yasuko's usual prostitution first. Why would an outstanding woman from Keio University sold her body every night, willing to expose herself to such an unsafe situation? Rumor had it that it was because Yasuko was obsessed with gambling and owed a large sum of money to Yakuza. So she had to struggle hard to pay back but was killed by Yakuza because of not paying enough. To find out more clues, the police investigated Yasuko's financial status. According to TEPCO's files, Yasuko earned 14 million yen in total in 1997. Definitely a member of high-income class. Besides, she also gained from her prostitution hundreds of thousands of yen. Till her death in 1997, she had nearly 100 million yen in her bank account. A very impressive number in those days. Thus, the speculation that Yasuko died because of owing money was busted. The second speculation, through the survey in her company, the police learned Yasuko acted weird sometimes. Many colleagues said she had never eaten anything in the office for almost 10 years. At lunchtime, she would swallow numerous vitamins. However, when she got off work, she would go to the same convenience store to buy oden almost every day. She would eat it up by the store entrance. On the night she died, she bought oden as well. But having finished it, she came back to the store and bought two vegetable salads as takeouts. At the crime scene, the police found the two salads untouched. One witness often saw her eating in public, with her makeup all wearing off. So the police began to suspect she was mentally ill. They confirmed she had been diagnosed with mental illness before. That was when she was a sophomore in college. Because of her father's sudden death, she became anorexic for the first time. She had adored her father so much since she was a kid, and they had been very close. To her, his death was a shattering blow, then she suffered a relapse. It occurred in 1986, the fifth year she joined TEPCO. Right in this year, her supervisor changed from mild Akira Ohira to tough Tsuneiza Katsumata. There was tension between the latter and Yasuko due to some business disagreements. Two key characters of this story, Akira Ohira and Tsuneiza Katsumata, finally all came on stage. After 1986, in the period between Akira Ohira's leave and Yasuko's death, she no longer ate anything in the company. How could this happen? It had something to do with her father. We know Yasuko's father, Tatsuo Watanabe, was a middle manager in TEPCO before he died. Japan is a country with scarce energy resources. Its economy developed rapidly between the 70s and 82nd, and how to find the new energy to replace coal became the top problem in Japan. This was also a huge challenge for TEPCO as there were very limited energy options. Soon TEPCO divided into the parties pro-nuclear and anti-nuclear. Their debates never stopped. Yasuko's father, Tatsuo Watanabe, was one of the representatives of anti-nuclear party. As long ago as the 1970s, he began to advocate never use nuclear power in Japan within the company. Nuclear power plants must be located by waters, since its reactors need plenty of cooling water to function normally every day. Yet Japan is a country short of water resources. Fresh water resources per capita in Japan is less than half of the world average. Therefore, Japan's nuclear power plants can only be located on coasts, places like Fukushima County. Unfortunately, Japan is also a country with many volcanoes and frequent earthquakes. In its coastal regions, it's impossible to find a place that meets seismic codes for a nuclear power plant. In an area prone to frequent earthquakes and tsunamis, forcibly building nuclear plants will lead to disaster. As there was no better plan for Japan's energy crisis in the early 1970s in TEPCO, top management was taken over by the pro-nuclear party, led by Shonasu. Tatsuo Watanabe's appeal seemed a hindrance. In March 1979, a meltdown and leak accident took place in the nuclear power plant on 3 Mile Island, the U.S. making the U.S. government call off construction projects of all nuclear power plants. Meanwhile, it sounded the alarm worldwide for nuclear constructions, including Japan. Sadly, Tatsuo was diagnosed with advanced cancer and soon passed away in the same year. Think about it, isn't the timing too coincidental? Afterwards, the pro-nuclear party gained unanimous approval in the company. No objection was to be found. Not until Yasuko Watanabe joined the company, we can say she joined TEPCO to follow her father's unfulfilled will. On her entry, she was disgruntled with the nuclear-focused business strategy of the company. Despite not explicitly expressing her opinion, in her report, she wouldn't conform to top management's preaching nuclear power. At that time, her supervisor Akira Ohira was gentle, willing to tolerate her. Not hard to understand that Akira Ohira was born highly privileged. As the son of Prime Minister Masayoshi Ohira, he worked in TEPCO only to polish up his resume, no need for him to get involved in the strife. But his successor, Tsuneiza Katsumata, was totally different. He was very tough. In 1963, Tsuneiza Katsumata graduated from the University of Tokyo. It took him 22 years to become the general manager of the planning department. He was more eager to climb higher in rank after that, so he took the pro-nuclear side, standing by Sho Nasu, an alumnus of the same university as him. He apparently regarded troublesome Yasuko as an obstacle to his success. It was the year 1986. On April 26, 1986, the number 4 reactor in the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in the Soviet Union exploded and leaked. It was a great blow to TEPCO's pro-nuclear party. The consequences of the disaster were obvious too. After the Chernobyl accident, many countries demolished some of their nuclear plants. However, the construction of reactors in Japan still increased constantly due to TEPCO's backing. Because TEPCO had invested so much in nuclear power, it would suffer a large loss if the nuclear power program failed. The pro-nuclear party would lose its dominance as well. At this critical point, if sophisticated enough, Yasuko would gain favor of her supervisor as long as she trumpeted the future of nuclear power in her investigation report to maintain the company's confidence in nuclear power. But she wrote a report to the top management behind Tsuneiza Katsumata's back to discuss plans of developing other energy resources, like geothermal power, not mentioning a bit of nuclear power. What she had done agitated Tsuneiza Katsumata. After several heated arguments, she was left high and dry, deprived of all her management rights. Her career seemed to hit rock bottom. Back then, Japanese women who just began their career were discriminated against in many ways. Very few women could make it to such high standing from scratch all by themselves like Yasuko. Her efforts for all these years were in vain. For her, an aspirant person, it was too hard to bear. This sort of psychological imbalance might trigger her self-destruction mechanism. So, the police considered her death as an accident. But try to piece together all the details above, we're likely to have a bigger conspiracy here. On the night of her death, the police found the salads next to her body. Logically speaking, she might prepare these two salads for someone she knew who she was going to meet that night. But both salads were untouched. Was she killed by her acquaintance or killed before their meeting? And who was this acquaintance? The police had no more clues, yet investigative journalists got something shocking. On her sex trade notebook, the journalists found an unbelievable name, Akira Ohira. The journalists got extremely intrigued by his identity as the son of Japanese Prime Minister. Numerous media contacted him, and first he refused to be interviewed when they asked him to. Then he made it clear that he hadn't met Yasuko at all after he left TEPCO. When asked, "Is that you on the notebook?" he refused to answer and hung up. Later, the journalists called the number again, only to find it cancelled. The journalists trying to keep investigating were warned soon after, "If the harassment continues, we will call the police and take legal actions." At last, the journalists had to give up. Was the name Akira Ohira on the notebook the real Akira Ohira? And was Akira Ohira the male acquaintance who had sex with Yasuko and left behind evidence? All these questions may never be answered. While the media went on investigating, the police made a breakthrough. Through DNA matching, an unlucky guy called Manali became the suspect. Although there was evidence in his favor, he was quickly convicted. At the crime scene, apart from Manali's body fluid and hair, the police also collected other unidentified hair and body fluid samples. The media believed the quick conviction was caused because the prosecution deliberately overlooked or hid key evidence. Obviously, someone behind the scenes planned to make Manali the scapegoat to close the messy case. Others may stop probing right here, but forbidden files and won't. In today's show, we can say it clearly, the powerful figure behind was Sho Nasu, one of the big three pro-nuclear backers in TEPCO. Sho Nasu left TEPCO in 1991 to work as Commissioner of National Public Safety Commission. The commission has only 5 members. They are directly led by cabinet ministers of Japan, mainly responsible for establishing domestic police department and administering national and intelligence security. The commission can exercise privileges to instruct the police to investigate specific cases. It was very suspicious that the commission appointed the former TEPCO executive as commissioner for 2 consecutive terms. In 1997, when Yasuko's case happened, Sho Nasu took up the commissioner position. As a former member of pro-nuclear party in TEPCO, Sho Nasu had a motive to interfere with the investigation of Yasuko's case, so the prosecution deliberately overlooked or hid key evidence. Innocent Manali was in prison for 15 years while Tsuneiza Katsumata, responsible for the Fukushima accident, was found not guilty. If we go through the whole case again, more chilling details will emerge. During the climax of TEPCO's nuclear dispute, Yasuko's father suddenly died of cancer, which led to Yasuko's anorexia. After Akira Ohira left TEPCO in 1986, Yasuko suffered a relapse, eating nothing but lots of vitamins in the office. Was it because Akira Ohira told her, for protection, the truth of her father's death before he left? Some believed as long ago as November 1978, a few months before Tatsuo Watanabe died, a severe criticality accident happened in the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. 5 safety rods were mistakenly pulled out. In the following 7.5 hours, the nuclear reactor was on the edge of explosion. If an explosion had ever occurred, the entire Fukushima wouldn't have excited anymore. Its severity could have been comparable to the subsequent Chernobyl nuclear disaster. TEPCO narrowly escaped the disaster. This accident was kept confidential until an anonymous source broke it to the media 30 years later. TEPCO's top management suppressed all information then, and even many insiders knew nothing about it. It was highly likely that Tatsuo Watanabe learned about this secret, and was poisoned with radioactive substances in food and finally died of cancer. After 1986, Yasuko's action of never eating anything in the company but vitamins might be a sort of protest or a whole way of self-protection. Because in 1976, Nobel Prize winner Linus Pauling proved vitamins could effectively protect people from cancer. If given megadoses of vitamins, cancer patients could live longer than expected. Unfortunately, whatever reason it might be, Yasuko's action acutely affected her mental state. General Akira Ohira might remind her of her father, or they got more intimate than colleagues should. But this relationship couldn't last long. Soon after leaving TEPCO, he married the daughter of the president of Teisho Pharmaceutical Co. Just then, Yasuko had already turned her self-destruction mode on, gradually falling into an abyss of danger. Eventually, on the night in March 1997, her life came to an end with the shouted takeouts. By then, no more anti-nuclear protests could be heard in TEPCO. All staff were dedicated to the great constructions of nuclear power. Without people challenging the idea of nuclear power, all problems seemed to vanish right away. Until March 12, 2011, Yasuko's death is a tragedy. Someone thinks she was a sex addict who died from her own depravity. However, we shouldn't demand all victims be perfect. Imperfect victims aren't the reason for people to wash away those criminals' vice. Who killed Yasuko that night might only be a pawn, yet who manipulated the game may never be convicted. Perhaps it's the tragedy of our times. Yasuko Watanabe's death could also be a motivation for us. Whenever you want to give up, hang in there and try to be resilient. Justice can be delayed, but you will live till it is finally served because you are young, younger than those who have done evil. There are still faraway places you will explore, but the fiends are stuck where they are forever.